go ahead and get started because I want Dennis to have as much time as possible to talk, and then we want to have as much time as possible to answer questions. So I actually want to open this by saying a lot of you have been discussing the most recent launch, which is our video interviews on the platform. So now you will have 3 ways of interviewing with clients. So that can be the phone call where a client schedules an interview with you on the platform, you receive a phone call from them. The second, as many of you have seen, is a Google Meet that is set up by the account executive, and you'll receive communication from them. And then the third way, the new way, is a video interview on the platform. So you can now do a video with the client on the Overpass platform. All of that to say is everyone should be prepared to be on video for an interview. So as we've discussed in earlier webinars, have a very clean professional background, look clean and professional. This is an interview for a job, and it should be treated as such. So wanted to open with that. And we have a whole webinar on it. So wanted to clarify that because we got some initial confusion and questions. And Dennis was mentioning some confusion during the interviews as well. So feel free to ask any questions at the end about that. I know that it's new. Happy to answer those at the end, but wanted to preface this webinar with that.
2 a.m. South Africa time this morning. I saw that interview. I was like, good golly, who's interviewing at 2 in the morning?
Chantel has been very dedicated. We've seen her come up a lot. So that's good. But Dennis, I will let you take it away from here. As everyone knows, Dennis is our sales manager, and today we are tackling a really big topic, which is closing, how to close a sale. So Dennis, I will let you take it from here.
All right. So, I don't know how many of these webinars we've done, Mia, probably 12, a dozen or so far. And there was a logical order. Like when we first started out, we talked about setting goals, then how to set up your workspace and your profile. And then interviews and how to be effective in interviews. And then we talked about getting through gatekeepers, and we talked about qualifying, and then we talked about value proposition. And then we went through a 3-week series on objection handling to get to here, which is literally at the end of the day, if you didn't do everything up front right, you don't get the opportunity to close. But closing is one of the most important activities that we do. I think that would make sense to everybody, right? We're not going to be a long-term value to our clients if we're not moving product and building inbound revenue for them. So incredibly important segment that we're doing here. And so let's just dig into it. So let's talk about why it is so important. So it's actually, if you use a trial close, you'll see that that's actually what you're doing is you're gauging if the customer understands what you've said up to that point. So usually that happens after you disclose your value proposition, why somebody would buy your product or service, what makes you different, etc. It moves the process to the next step. Some of you will be on contracts where you have a 1-call close, and it's not that expensive of a product, and you're selling a lot more volume. But some of you will be engaged in contracts where you might have a 6-month sales cycle. So in those 6 months, you may have 4 to 5 different meetings to get that customer to a final close, but that still requires you to close that step in the process every single time. And then obviously what's near and dear to our heart, it's the point where we are rewarded for our work effort, right? That's how we make more cash. Our best contractors on Overpass will usually double their base rate when they're in a good contract that they've got previous experience on with their commissions. So, literally it can double your quality of life if you become an effective closer. Does that make sense? All right, so we're going to go through, and I'm going to break these out kind of slowly because I put a bunch of them in here, right? But a trial close I was just speaking to, right? We're also going to talk about an alternate choice close, which is like, hey, here's a couple options. Which one works the best for you? An either or close, right? Either we have to do this or this will happen. That's more of an in your face type of a close. A menu close, which some of you may not be that familiar with, but we're going to go through it. And it's giving your customers the option of, just like they were going to dinner and ordering their food, of several different options on the menu, and they pick the one that works the best for them. This is actually one of my favorite closing types, is the menu presentation. It's not confrontational, it's very discussionary, and it just kind of leads the path down the trail. But you can't always do it depending on your product unless you're on video. So it's tougher to do in a phone call over voice, right, than it would be sometimes on video. An assumptive close is just assuming that your customer is going to buy. You can see their response. That's probably the close I use the most often, is the assumption close. Because if I can see that the customer's understanding, they're nodding their head, and we're smiling, we're having good dialogue, and I have good feedback, I don't ask them to buy. I just assume they're going to and take them right to the next step. A good example of that, well, we'll break it down here in a little bit. And then there's a direct close. And always, I think a lot of you guys know that I actually live in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, right? And I always call this the taco stand close. If you ever go to a taco stand in Latin America, they'll ask every single person that walks down the street if they want a taco. Now, they haven't done a sales presentation, but they just directly ask for the business. And they have a certain degree of success just out of sheer volume. I will say that a direct close is better than no close at all, but it's probably the weakest of the 6 on this list. So let's boil down, let's get down into these. But before we do that, this photo, and sometimes you'll see it in a little balance scale, but like this is the core fundamental of sales. A customer is never going to buy anything from you until the value is worth more than the cost. So if I was selling you a taco and I went down the street and I went to the taco stand and they go, and I asked them, how much is your taco? And they said $15. I'm like, man, that seems like a really expensive taco, right? But what they didn't tell me, it was all I could eat tacos for $15, which would still be expensive here, but that built more value in the cost that I was going to invest to go buy my lunch. This is an immovable object in sales, and the very first thing that you should learn in any sales meeting. Because if you think about it, the only true objection is cost. Because if whatever product or service you were representing was free, everybody would probably buy it. So cost is the one objective that's almost impossible to overcome if it's not handled well up front. So there's our basic scale of a sale. We have to build the value before you ever get to the close, which is the point I'm trying to make here. If you you can do a trial close early, right? Or you can do an assumptive close to get to the next step. But anytime in a transaction you try to close too early, that cost is going to have a bigger weight than the actual value of what you're selling, and you're probably going to get a no. So let's assume that we've already sold the value of our product. Like we went through the other week, we've already disclosed our value proposition. We've handled any objections, right, at this point, like we talked about the last 3 weeks. So a typical trial close is used mid-presentation to ensure the customer understands the value prop and the potential sale is moving in the right direction. An example, let's say I tell somebody the best thing about Overpass is we aren't a third-party call center and we're not a recruiting company. A recruiting company would charge you 15 to 20% of somebody's annual income just to hire someone. But what we like to do is partner with your success. So even though your contract may be for a 1-year term, you're only going to pay for our services monthly, And we're about 30 to 40% of what a conventional recruiter would charge you, all up front with no guarantees. So can you see? A trial close will almost always start with, can you see? So can you see up to now how working with us would potentially be a win-win scenario? I'm making sure they understand exactly what Overpass is before I go to the next piece of the presentation, right? So let's say that that's a negative response. You need to go back to your value proposition, because in the customer's mind, your cost still outweighs the value of what they're getting in your product or service. Next on the list, the alternate choice close. So basically the alternate choice close is literally putting 2 options in front of the customer that they can choose from. With Tuesday morning, or afternoon work the best for you to set up some interviews with your new sales team? Right? That's an alternate choice close. Would you like this in red or black? Would you like to take care, or would you like to take advantage of our prepayment discount for 20% off your fee? Which Overpass doesn't do that, but for sake of example, I'm not sure what all products and services you're selling. So, but an alternate choice is a way to give them an option, so you're not just going, hey, it's this way or no way, right? It's my way or the highway. You're going, well, we could do it this way or we could do it this way. A typical Overpass scenario of an alternate choice close. So you have the option of using our technology, which will give you a dedicated phone number for every account executive, unlimited calling the US and Canada. It's a light CRM system, also their time clock, and also your hiring platform. If you wanted that talent, and we'll do the payment facilitation for you as well, that'd be $240 a month. But if you'd like to use your own tools and just have them use our system as a time clock in your payment system, we're more than happy with that as well. We don't want to change your tool set if you're already committed to one. And the best part is that's only $160 a month, or about $1 an hour on a full-time employee. Which one of those would work the best for you? Right? There would be a typical example of an Overpass alternate choice close. All right, let's go to our next. Either or close. Either or close is a little bit edgier, right? Like you're literally kind of putting that client or prospect into a corner, right? There's very direct ways to do this close, which probably aren't going to be good because the customer will be threatened. But there's also real light-mannered ways to do this, is probably the best term, where it's not offensive. So it's more direct than the alternative choice close, and either or gives finite options, right? We could either continue our conversation at a future date, or if you're not seeing the value, could this just be a bad fit? Now, you might ask, Dennis, why would you ever say that in a sales presentation? I'll tell you this, about 1 out of 6 or 7 calls that I'm in, I say exactly this. And the reason is because maybe we have a client that hadn't even designed a sales process, or they have no sales leadership, or they don't have leads. They haven't even done market segmentation and figured out who they wanted to sell to. Well, making a commitment to build a whole sales team with no sales infrastructure is usually a pretty bad fit. And sometimes we've had contractors that get on a contract with a client like that. We're not saying they never get on the platform, they do. But when you get with the client like that, it's usually a very short-term project because it has a tendency to implode because they never did the background or the infrastructure to set their business up for success before you started with them. So this is a conversation that I don't have every day, right? But it's several times a month in a discovery call where I'll have to use this exact approach, right? Hey, either we can do this or maybe just a bad fit. But it's kind of like a finite close, right? There's not a lot of backing up. You may be able to handle an objection, but it's pretty finite close. Menu close. Okay, this one's interesting. So this was actually invented in the automotive industry. Obviously not menus, but this closing technique. And I can tell you the year it launched because I had the first digital platform, online platform that car dealerships use to use this exact close. So a menu option is designed, first of all, right? We're going to give them multiple options and I'm going to pick the one that works the best for them. Now I'm going to use this example as if we were at a car dealership, but obviously this would be different. In other words, if I was talking about Overpass, I could have, hey, here's your $240 a month plan with tech, and here's your $160 a month plan with talent and your payroll facilitation, just like the $240. Or if you want to, and you have existing employees or people that are already in-house that you want on our platform, there's actually a third option that we don't talk about much, but you can actually put them on our platform for $120 a month. And that can be done in just a few minutes. But looking at those 3 options, which one do you think is going to fit your business model and you better, right? That would be a typical menu presentation for Overpass, where in the auto industry, this gets much more complex because there's all these additional things they sell you when they finance your car. So like in this example, hey, your sales price of your vehicle is $29,500. There's zero sales tax because you're going to pay that separately to the state. It's not included in your loan. You have an administrative fee of $599, and you have other fees of $2,044.75, which are the options and accessories that you chose to put on your vehicle. So we would have a base monthly payment on a 75-month finance term at 5.78% interest rate at $511.67 a month. And your total amount due today, if you just want to cut me a check, is $32,143.75. Now, that being said, that option is always open to you. But what I've done is I've taken the liberty to put together 4 packages that is where most of our clients choose to take advantage of. Each package is a little bit different. So I'm going to walk through these. And when I'm done walking through the options, you could just pick whatever box works the best for you. We are not here to do any high pressure sales. We're here to make sure that you get the exact auto buying experience you want with the protection you deserve. So the first one's our Platinum plan, and that would be the best plan that we offer. It would include your exclusionary extended warranty with a $100 disappearing deductible. In other words, you pay it one time, you never pay it again. It would also include gap protection. So if your car were ever totaled or was a total loss and you owed more than the car was worth, gap coverage will pick up the difference between those two numbers. And of course, you're going to want the Quality Guard Plus, the maintenance package, and that way you can just gas and go, right? You can bring it into your maintenance and that'll all be prepaid in your contract, in your finance contract as well. And of course, your tire and wheel coverage. Since those aren't warranted by the manufacturer, this is a supplementary coverage. It will cover even if you have a flat tire and somebody needs to come out and change it with no deductible involved in that. Platinum package is amazing if that's something that fits in your budget well. From there, you could have the Gold, which is very similar options to what we talked about without the tire and wheel coverage, or the Silver coverage with the warranty that we mentioned before, the service contract, your gap coverage, and we'll go in and on that one do the glass coat and lifetime lifetime paint protection plan on that one. And then of course, some folks are on a pretty tight budget. You know, they're pretty payment conscious because they know there's only so much money in the well at the end of the month. And some of those folks opt for our bronze plan. And of course, that includes your extended service contract, right? And remember, that's for 60 months or 60,000 miles. If any type of repair that you have that's covered under the plan, you would pay $100 one time, even if it broke 6 times. Same $100. If the bill was $3,000, we pay. Now, and of course, the gap protection, because we all know financing for 75 months, there's a good possibility financing something that long, that in the first 2-3 years, especially, you could owe more than a used car value. So, you know, more than your car's worth. And, you know, there could be a flood, it could be an accident, and nobody wants anything like that to happen. But the worst thing in the world would be to have a vehicle that you can't actually use and you're still left with a debt without transportation. So that kind of takes care of that. But let me ask you this. Our Platinum option is $584 a month with the same interest rate and finance term. Our Gold is the $576.90. Our Silver is the $567.36. And our Bronze is the $559.42. Of those options, which one do you think would work the best for you? And then that's exactly what I do. I say absolutely nothing until that customer responds. This actual presentation, 75% of the time, the customer chooses one of those 4 boxes and you're just doing the finance contract, right? So very long explanation of a menu close. This takes a while to do, but think about the particular product or service that you're selling and see if this is something you even have the potential to do, right? This type of close. This visual backed up with value proposition and choice is one of the most powerful closing tools I've ever had the privilege of using in my life. And then the assumptive close. So obviously self-descriptive, right? You know, kind of like our little man over there walking the dog, right? It just assumes the customer is going to buy and you just talk about your next steps. So if I'm getting positive reaction for a customer, let's say, for example, So now that you've seen the value of Overpass, why don't we go ahead and set up an interview block now? And then I'll help you out with a job post. You can share your screen. We'll get that in right now as well. So today's Wednesday. Would Friday afternoon, which would be kind of quick, or would Monday morning work better for you? Right? Whoa, let me look at my calendar. I think Monday afternoon. Let me check mine. Okay, we can squeeze it in. You're looking for 4 positions. That's going to mean you're going to interview about 8 people, and it's going to take you about 4 hours if they're 30 minutes apiece. Do you have that much time? Yeah, I'm okay. I can do it. Okay. All right. Let's go ahead and get that set. Share your screen, and I'll show you how to post your job. And once that's in system, contractors can apply for your job. I'm going to go in and hand pick contractors out of the database and send those to you that we know are ready to work, looking for opportunities and work in your or an adjacent industry. And then also, as you saw, when we first post the job, you'll see the computer just kind of make some recommendations over there on the left too, out of an algorithm. But whatever happens, I'm going to make sure I give you white glove service and make sure we get you the right people for the positions you need to fill. And we're going to do this in a very timely manner. Remember when I said in the beginning, 3 to 5 business days? Monday afternoon, when we finish these interviews, you'll make your hiring decision of which one of those you want to put on board. Done. Customer has any objections? You'll hear about them then, right? And then let's talk about the direct close, or the taco stand close, so to speak. Literally, it's just directly asking for the business. Example, for a total investment today of $499, your total investment today is $499. How'd you like to take care of the balance? Right? It's about as direct as you can get. How much is this going to cost me? Oh, it's $499. How'd you like to take care of the balance? We could do a wire transfer, or you could just insert a credit card. I can help you enter that info right now. That's what works out the best for you. Direct closes, as I said in the beginning, it's better to use a direct close than no close at all. But probably one of the least effective because it's very pressure driven and in your face. Now, if I was selling a $19.95 subscription service to Netflix, I can do that. I can literally use this. Who do you use today? Are you currently on Hulu, or do you use Amazon, or you just got cable, old school hooked up, right? Well, we have Amazon, but we don't watch it that much. Yeah, that programming's kind of tired, isn't it? It seems like it's just a big remake of reruns to me. I know at least I enjoy Netflix much more, and when you think about it, it really costs less than what my Amazon Prime does. So your cash investment today is only $19.95. Would you like to take care of that right now while we're on the phone? Why don't you go ahead and pull out your credit card, and we'll get over to that screen. We'll get you set up, and you can literally get that in on your TV in about 10 minutes. Right? Okay. Okay. Which is the best close for the product or service you are selling, or for your prospect's personality type? Let's go through these. Trial close. If I have somebody that's agreeing with me, right? It's cooperative, it's leading, there's no conflict, there's no hard sell there. So if I have somebody that seems kind of uncooperative, I'll actually use a trial close quite a bit and go, well, have we made it this far so far? And usually when I do that, that's when I get the objection that I'm looking for. Because if that client has an objection that I don't address, I'm never going to close that deal. Alternate choice close. It's direct, it's to the point. You could have the red one or you could have the green one. It works because it gives them options, not near as good as a menu, but at least it gives them a couple different ways to go. Either or close. It can work, but you're going to paint a line and you're going to draw a line in the sand, right? When you do it, or back a customer into a corner. So if you don't do it right, it can be very confrontational. Menu close. Customer guides their own decision based on your guidelines, and it does require either very good oral skills if you're on the phone, which I can do that with Overpass, but we only have those 3 options. So it's pretty easy, right? Some of your products, it may be a little tougher, or you just may not have enough options to use a menu presentation. I would encourage you to use that approach anytime you can because it's the least confrontational. And usually what you will get after a menu presentation are not even objections, they're questions, right? Tell me more about that service contract. How exactly does gap coverage work? Could I finance this for 80 months instead of 75? No, you cannot. I can do 72 maybe, right? That type. It's usually just questions, require answers. I think I'll go with a silver plan. Great. I think that's a wonderful decision. Let's go ahead and get that paperwork done. And then the direct close. It can work with a low investment product like buying a taco. Back to my taco analogy, right? It can work, but it's got to be a pretty doggone simple and inexpensive product to work effectively on a consistent basis. So we're going to take some Q&A on this. And then I also want to go through with any questions you have about the interview on video. And then if there's any other questions that you would like to bring up, at this point, I'm going to turn this over to Mia and just remind you, as I do every week, we can do this. So Mia, what do we have for questions today?
No questions thus far. I just want to remind everyone, as usual, to put your questions in the chat. You can also raise your hand if you would like to verbally express your question, or you can put it in the Q&A. Additionally, if you want to see more examples or like a role play of the different closes, I am happy to be a guinea pig and help with that if anyone wants to see more of an example. And then, of course, we always answer questions about Overpass in general, any questions you have about your profile, the system, hiring, anything and everything. So feel free to ask. Oh, we have a question from Manish. So Manish, you can go ahead and talk. You need to unmute yourself.
Okay, can you hear me, Dennis?
Yes, yes sir.
Okay. I have a question, like as you were explaining about, it's very easy to, sell the subscription, right? And but whenever we go for a high ticket sale, like $1,000 or, 500, more than 500. So no one is going to give you the credit card or, the payment option upfront until and unless, they want to check each and everything and, rely that, yes, whatever I'm paying, I'm getting worth of it. So
Right.
sometimes it becomes very difficult to, what we say, to give a rebuttal, right? Rebuttal to convince the client. So since I can see that you are experienced, I have also checked out some of your YouTube video. So how we can close it, with a high ticket sale that I face problem with sometimes.
Okay, yeah, and I love that question, by the way, Manish, and I appreciate it. Let me tell you that's something that's not exactly related to what I said, but ties right into it. In a higher ticket sales, I would imagine, and you can tell me if I'm right or wrong, a lot of times there's more than one engagement with a client. Is that true, or is it not true in your particular scenario that you're speaking of, Manish?
No, only with one client.
No, but I mean, like, you have a one-call sale, and then almost always close on the first call, or are you reaching out multiple times before they buy?
Multiple times.
Okay. Perfect.
Like
exactly
like a vehicle,
yeah,
or
like
engine.
Sales sequence, and you've got several steps, and you're moving them to the next step, right?
Yeah, like if you're selling an engine, right? Vehicle refurbished engine. So this cannot be done, in one call. It will take a follow-up.
Amazon. Right, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, so what I always do in scenarios like that, where I've got a multi-stage close, and it may take more than one engagement, I define the goals for the meeting at the very beginning when I get them on the phone. And I'm like, hey, here's kind of how I have the outline for this meeting. I'd like to know a little bit, obviously, first about you and your needs, and make sure I understand that exactly what you need. And then from there, I can show you exactly what I offer. Now, let me ask you this. I mean, we've just met. Is this a purchase that you think you'd finalize today? Or what's your expectation of the meeting by the time we get out of this? And if you define that expectation up front, just ask it right out of the chute, is what I'm saying, right off the bat. Right? Hi, my name is Manish, right? I mean, after a couple exchanges, obviously. But try to set the expectation for the meeting and get them to agree. It's like, hey, the logical next step after this is going to send you a tech spec sheet, and then I'm going to call you back the exact same time tomorrow if that works for you, and I'll answer any other question that you have if you needed time to review that, and then we can go ahead and get your payment invitation, payment information, right? But I said
Right.
at the beginning of the meeting, does that make sense, Manish?
Yes, yes. And I also find that it becomes it's entirely different, interacting with a business owner and then compared to a individual, selling an
Absolutely.
individual. Yeah.
Absolutely. B2B sales, they truly buy way more based on a need, where a B2C client usually buys a lot of their business or a lot of their buying decision is based on want.
That's right.
In other words, someone says, hey, we need a new car. No, you don't. Average car in the United States is traded in every 42 months. A car lasts a lot longer than 3.5 years. So you wanted a
Right.
new car. You didn't need a new car.
Absolutely.
But if the engine blows in my car, now I have a hard decision to make because I have to buy an engine, right? Let's say they didn't have a warranty, or I've got to go buy a new car. That's a finite decision. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
But
Got
it's
you.
very hard to sell business to business based on want. I can get into underlying psychological reasons, like you want your business to grow. You want to be able to scale and bring in more inbound revenue. That's the goal of our call, right? Right. So when we finish up today, if there's anything that you don't dislike about what I say, is it something we want to go ahead and get to fruition and move you down the road? Because I can have you folks in 3 to 5 business days.
Right. I do have.
Okay. And it may work the other way. We may not be a good fit, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I do have experience in B2C, closing the sales, but with B2B, I have only have experience in the past, like setting an appointment.
Okay.
Right.
I do not have experience in closing the sales with the business owner.
Yeah, it's very different because it's obviously way more business oriented. It's harder to build rapport when you're talking about just a business deal, right?
Yeah, that's
And you've literally got to dig a lot into the psyche of your customer and understand their exact positioning, what their current state is, where they want to go, before you ever disclose your value proposition. That's something I talked about a few meetings ago, right, Mia?
I absolutely did. Yeah.
Past prospects ask me what we do, Manish.
yes. And I believe that at the beginning, first we need to understand, the requirement. Rather we
How big are they? How long have they been in business? What does their sales structure look like today? Do they have an organized plan? Do they have dedicated sales management? Right? They're looking for a short-term initiative or a long-term initiative. How many people do they think they're looking for? What's the salary range? I've asked them all that before I ever give them what Overpass actually does and delivers.
Right. Awesome. Manish, thank you so much for your question. I'm going to move on because we have a lot of other people, but thanks so much. And I saw Jenny Mae Fernandez, you had raised your hand, but then put it down. Leslie, I see your hand, but we have 2 questions in the Q&A that I would like to get through. So this is from an anonymous attendee. They say, general question, they just came off of a contract trial and wants to land another contract as soon as possible. Dennis, you and I can both answer this. I think this is one of those things where, you usually will hear from an AE or apply for something. That we would like to know your first and last name. That would be helpful, because if you have landed a contract and were successful, then that obviously means that you're familiar with the interviewing process. So give your first and last name. We can take a look at the profile and see if you'd be a good fit for any future opportunities. Anything I missed, Dennis?
No, that's it. And really hone in on your profile. Make sure you've got a great picture. Make sure recording doesn't have any stutters or is elocuted well. And then make sure all your previous work experience is in there and any hours you're available. Because if that is not in there, we're going to assume the worst when we're looking for candidates to send to a client, just because we don't know. And I don't always have time to call 8 contractors for an interview block. We literally don't have that much time. Sometimes we do, most times we don't.
Absolutely. Yeah. So anonymous, if you want to give your first and last name, I'm happy to take a look and we can follow up after the webinar. Jadana, I would say yes to your question. I think in general, it is best to close a sale, gauge the customer, as Dennis said, qualify them, get a feel for who they are, And then based on how they respond to your questions, go in for the close. So yes to everything you just said. Leslie, I'm going to go ahead and let you speak. So if you want to unmute, you can go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, how you doing? How's everything? Good?
Good.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, my question is, can't you use a number of those approaches depending on how you feel that potential customer is coming across?
I use every one of them at one time or another. And a lot of that depends on the customer's personality type. So, and I'll break that down really quick. I'll try to make it brief so I don't went a long time on the last answer. But let's just say you have 4 basic personality types. So the first one, let's say, is popular. Popular personality type, usually you have to make a decision for them. And usually you have to wait for an hour and a half for them to get done talking so you can get a word in edgewise to close them, right? And then you have a powerful personality type, but that person wants to make their own decision. So if I lay options in front of them, they'll make their own value-based decision. I've got a perfect personality type, which, when I was younger, I used to call it pipe smoker back when smoking was around a lot more, but that's very detailed engineering type person that wants to know every single detail before they're going to buy. And then you have a peaceful personality type that's just super laid back and easy to get along with. And most times you just have to make the decision for them because they won't make it on their own. So I'll use a combination of those approaches depending on which one of those boxes they fit in. Does that make sense, Leslie?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks so much for your question.
Do another breakout on personality types, by the way, guys. That's a whole nother webinar. If you're interested in doing that, let me know. But we can talk about 4 core personality types and how to sell each one.
Perfect. Thanks so much for your question, Leslie. Appreciate it. I see, Chantel, you have a question. You didn't type it out, so I will go ahead and let you speak. So go ahead and unmute and you can ask your question.
Okay, thank you. So my question is related to the interview this morning. It's what the guy said to me. He said to me that after a month, I can decide whether I want to stay on the hourly rate or whether I just want to stay on commission. And it threw me because I was like, I've worked in sales and there was always a basic and then commission. So I was still reeling from that question. So I just kept quiet, but it's been playing in my mind. What do you guys do? Other companies also do this? Why? What do you?
No, we don't recommend you work a commission only contract. Obviously that'd be your prerogative if you work it out with your client. But when a client approaches us that way, Chantel, what we tell them is, if you're going to pay a higher commission, that's fine, but that hourly rate is going to be a draw or a guarantee. So if you're paying them $12 an hour, that's a guarantee that they're going to work, that you're going to pay them, $480 a week if they're going to work 40-hour week. Now, you can have it to where, let's say the commission on each sale was $500, right? You can have it to where they don't make anything more than that hourly rate until those $500 are more than the $1,800 you pay them in the month. So in other words, let's say I made $3,000 in commissions. We're okay if you subtract that $1,800 out, but they're still getting a $1,200 commission. That's an alternative pay plan that we'll look at. Now, what you just said that your client told you this morning, I doubt that interview was set up by an account executive. In fact, I guarantee it, look at it at the time. When he talked to us, or if we figure that out, we will take him off the platform. If he's just looking for commission only people, in other words, slave labor, and I hope it works out for you, we're not doing that. We don't do that. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question, Chantel?
Yes, but he didn't say after a month you will. He said you have the choice. You can decide or not, or stay on, but he didn't say.
That's super fair if he said that, because maybe in a month you go, look, I feel more comfortable staying with my hourly. Did he say it in a sense that, hey, after a month, there's absolutely no hourly? Or did he say it you can have the option of which one you'd rather have after a month?
He said you have the option.
Nothing wrong with that.
But it threw me because I was like, why would I even consider that? But I thought, let me just ask you guys, because you guys, well, you answered my question. Thank you.
Let me tell you the why. If somebody's giving you a guarantee, they're going to have a lot smaller commission. But if you're willing to work on a draw, a draw with an override, that business owner doesn't have any risk unless you just don't perform. But a really high performing salesperson will actually opt for the commission only. I'll give you an idea. When I was in my 20s, I was a director of finance for 7 Ford stores. That's why the menu presentation for cars is so familiar to me. I had a draw against commission. So my draw, this was obviously a day or two or a year or decades ago. My draw was $900 a month, and the average month I made 12 to 14,000. Did I care what my draw was? I could have cared less. I'm like, I don't even know why you guys keep doing this other than that's what you're paying employee benefits against. That's it. So, I never cared because my commission was going to so far exceed what the guarantee was. It wasn't even a conscious thought. Does that make sense, Chantal?
100%. Thank you so much.
You're more than welcome.
Thank you so much. All right. Any other questions from our lovely audience for today? Either
Great
chat.
question.
Yeah, very good questions. You have a really good group. I think closing just brings out all of the really good questions, Dennis. It's really interesting.
That's why it's near and dear to our heart, and that's why a lot of us love doing this, because it's that small joy of closing the deal, right?
Yeah, exactly. Dennis, in your experience with Overpass clients, in which call do you have the close? Because you mentioned usually for something like this, it's over multiple calls, or is this one usually just one long call with the client to close?
So with an Overpass client, usually we'll have an initial phone call, 5-10 minutes. But literally the whole point of that call is to get them on a Google Meet. Like if they don't know how to post a job, we can share the screen. Or we can show them things on video that we can't show, that we can't explain by voice. So, but to ask your question, after just booking the meeting, and sometimes our clients self-book off an email response, my average close is 30 to 40 minutes, and it's one call. One presentation, one discovery call would be better said, but all in one. Now, obviously, there's a bunch of stuff we have to do as Overpass. We got to find which one of you guys are available that best fit the job. We got to set up interview blocks, send out invites, make sure everybody's in attendance, and we're actually in those interviews. When an account executive sets up an interview, they're usually in it with you, just so you know. And that's usually with a new client, because now you can go on the system on video interviews, and if they're just like reseating somebody or they're adding people, they can do that themselves. But we've already showed them how to do it.
Got it.
So
Got it.
we do a lot more white glove with a new client than we would within an existing one.
Got it. That makes sense. And speaking of interviews, if anyone has any other question about video interviews specifically, this is the time to ask. We know it was a new feature that was recently rolled out. And Dennis did mention that we could do another webinar on client personality types. So if you're interested in a webinar like that, please let me know in the chat. You can just say, yes, I'd love that, or no. And we can potentially create another webinar on that topic. So just let me know.
That would be a natural next step after closing, is talk about, okay, of all these sales techniques we've used, where's the right place to use which one based on your customer.
Okay. We're receiving resounding yeses in the chat, Dennis. So I think that'll be our next webinar.
Super great block. And like you could go into like Myers-Briggs and it's like a 80-page test. No, we're just gonna go through the basic 4.
Yeah.
We keep it really simple because you can make personality profiles to infinitum. In fact, my mother was the national spokesperson for Myers-Briggs for several years.
Really?
Yeah.
That's so interesting. Yeah, Myers-Briggs is like
is my blood mother. Yeah.
That's super cool. Oh, looks like we have another question. Jenny May, go ahead and unmute yourself. You can go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask regarding about the contract, since once we have a contract, since right now I have part-time and then I also received another contract. How long our contract will be? Is it like long-term or short-term only?
They're always designed for long-term. We have clients that will fail, right? But the contracts are always designed to be ongoing. So in other words, we don't, like if someone says, hey, I need people for 90 days. well, you might want to go to Upwork, because we just do long-term engagements for people looking to build and scale their sales department. That's our unique niche.
Yeah.
Somebody for 3 weeks, go to Upwork or Fiverr or, you know, some portal like that where you can just a la carte find somebody to go through your Excel spreadsheets for a month. I mean, whatever the case would be, right? But no, we don't do short-term initiatives. But I'm not saying that our clients don't have shorter-term contracts sometimes when they don't have their act together and their initiative fails.
Yeah, because I receive offer. I actually because I get excited, I immediately accept it. And upon reviewing the contract, it shows there that I will be having like a 2-week trial, and once I
Job
need
yet.
to. Yeah. Okay. So I already asked Garrett, but I just wanted to confirm about it because so that I would be like make sure that I'm making the right decision because so that we can look for other um employer. But they've already
Well,
explained that.
that is a special agreement that I made with
Oh.
Peter, CEO of JobGet. Now,
Okay.
saying that, Peter also has 20 overpass contractors that work with him. So you may not have known he had that many active contractors, but he does have the 2-week trial to make sure it's a good fit, because in a 30-minute interview, sometimes you just can't figure out if it's going to work long term. But in a couple of weeks, you can figure it out, right? So his philosophy is I'd rather fail fast as stretch it out, and then everybody's miserable. Does that make sense to you, Jenny?
Yeah, so it's actually like I made the right decision.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you perform for JobGet, and they will never want to let go of you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Thanks, Jenny.
That was an easy account to identify because it's the only one I've ever done that with.
I know. I was like, as soon as she said 2-week trial, I was like, JobGet. That's our trial client.
Actually, I have a call with Peter tomorrow.
Oh, okay. Wonderful. Yeah. It sounds like most of the contractors are working out too. I haven't seen too many cancel, hopefully.
Of his original big, large bulk that he put in, there was pretty high turnover. And then it's just better and better as time goes on, less and less turnover.
Trial and error.
Some of that wasn't the CEO. Some of that was like the sales manager and HR and refining their message. And they have one thing that hurts them is a 3.9% unemployment rate because they output workers together with jobs. And there's a big deficit of workers right now in the US.
Yep.
So we have another client clocked in, and we have 2 or 3 clients that do similar things, and they're all struggling to find enough workers to fill. In other words, they get all kinds of clients. They don't have the people.
Yeah.
And obviously this is like working inside restaurants. It's all physical. You got to show up to work, right?
Yeah.
Not like what we do where we can work virtually.
Yeah, it's been tough. Cool. All right. We may end a bit early today, but last call for questions. I think this is a really good
Great
session and great questions. And as everyone mentioned, they would like to see a personality type webinar. So we will begin working on that.
Week.
But yeah, next week sounds good. Everyone is looking forward to that.
Based on who I grew up with, I can almost do that one in my sleep and blindfolded.
I was about to say, you're already a natural, but this one would be even easier than normal.
It was ingrained into my psyche as a child.
I know. Oh yeah, Manish says mock calls. Yes, so we are planning on doing more role play centric webinars in the future, but we wanted to make sure you all had a foundation first before we went through that process. So that is
I'd also like to know if you guys would like to come on and play devil's advocate, and I'll be the salesperson and you could be the client too.
Yeah,
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, so if anyone wants to volunteer in future sessions to be the client and do more of a role play with Dennis based on all of these different techniques that we've learned, we can definitely set something up to begin that as well.
You can see if you can.
Manish said yes, he would love to do it. So we'll put him on the list for people we'll add. Awesome. Oh, thanks, Dexter. So glad. We love to hear that. He said, you saw it? Yeah, okay, that's awesome. Cool. All right, everyone. Well, thank you again for a great session. As usual, we'll be posting this, sending it all to you in the next couple of days. Feel free to reach out with any questions, and we hope you all have a great rest of the day. Thanks so much, Dennis.
Thank you. Thanks for everybody that showed up. And thank you, Mia. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.